We acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's spirit, imagination and rich history of storytelling and humour that is an inspiration for all Australians.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bearer of Weird News. I am, as always, your host and the suppository of all wisdom, Matt Harvey. This, guys, will be the last episode for the year. Look, I'm not exactly sure when I'll be starting up in the new year. It won't be too long, but I am taking a little bit of a break. If you're lucky, or if I'm feeling up to it, maybe we'll put together a little bit of a best of for 2023, but I don't know. I'm not sure that I would hold my breath for that. I may have time, but it may not happen. But that doesn't mean that this episode isn't full of the usual fun, frivolity, and futility as any other episode will be. Now, of course, let's get straight into it. This episode is brought to you by Games Day, guys. Games Day, which was, of course, created by Games Workshop to attract more nerds to their world of extremely interesting lore, but debilitatingly expensive collecting. A hobby so expensive that Henry Cavill himself had to become a multimillionaire by portraying beloved alien nerd Superman in order to just be able to afford to have both the spare time and the money to afford to be able to keep the hobby up. You, of course, can celebrate by playing any game. You don't have to play a Games Workshop game. You can play any game that you like. So if you want, you can join us here at the Bearer of Weird News as we partake in our favourite game, Saw. That's right. We will be filling what I consider to be quite a gaping hole in the logic of the Saw films. Because if you apply that, you could have done more with your life logic to anybody, it really should be CEOs, multi-millionaire, billionaire CEOs. Why are you punching down, attacking people with debilitating drug habits and all these other people when really everyone you've ever needed to attack is a CEO? They have all of this money and they could be doing so much more with their life. So get on it. That guy who is now dead, John Kramer, get on it. You're going to put a CEO in a trap that requires them to eradicate poverty using their immense wealth. And if they don't do it, then we'll find another and we'll put them in there and we'll continue to do this thing until somebody eradicates poverty. I don't know why they never did it. I don't know why they never followed through on this logical flaw. Maybe they'll do it in Saw 11. Yes, that's right, the upcoming Saw 11. This episode, of course, is also brought to you by National Crossword Puzzle Day. To celebrate National Crossword Puzzle Day, we will do a full crossword puzzle together. So please, take a moment and get your crossword puzzle together. I'm sure you already came prepared for this one. And we're going to be working on a crossword puzzle together. I think we're going to do, let's have a look. Yeah, we're going to do 25 down together. So get ready. 25 down. Okay. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that'd be it. Fantastic, cool, and that's it for National Crossword Puzzle for today. Good work, guys. Good work, team. Good work, team. We will continue this good work next Crossword Puzzle Day, so do hold on to your copy of the crossword, and we'll pick up where we left off. And as always, of course, this show is brought to you by my upcoming 2024 live tour. Yes, as one year comes to a close and another year begins, I will be plugging my live tour all over again. I'll be heading out to a number of festivals across the country, starting, of course, on January 19th for one show only at the Rockingham Fringe Festival, the first ever Rockingham Fringe Festival over in WA. So if you're in that area, if you know someone around that area who you think might enjoy this show, do encourage them to come out and see the show. I will then be flying back here, only to fly straight back to WA a little bit later to do Perth Fringe World Festival. Yes, I'll be doing a couple more shows at the Fringe World Festival. We'll do from the 12th until the 18th of February, and then a little bit of a break as we do the Adelaide Fringe Festival from February 29th until March 10th. And then we'll be jumping straight into the Melbourne International Comedy Festival starting at March 29th and all the way through until April 21st. So that is my live storytelling and stand-up show, Wage Against the Machine, which is all about my old dodgy jobs, my $20,000 rover debt, and the time that I broke a 100-year-old roller coaster. If you enjoy the kind of content that is in this show, you will enjoy that show, and I do encourage you to come out or to send somebody who you think will enjoy it to come and check me out. Now, if you can't come out to one of those shows, don't worry. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so either by sharing it, liking it, doing whatever it is that you do on the platform that you happen to be on, or by joining the Patreon. That's right, patreon.com/Matt Harvey Stuff. That is the address for the Patreon, where you can sign up for as little as $1 a month, and you can get our bonus stories there. So if you enjoy the kind of content that we put on here, I have a bonus story for you. Every episode of this has a bonus story with it, so you can go check that out on the Patreon. Feel free to sign up for there. Now, this is a little bit of a treat for me. I'm allowed to talk about it now as the embargo has been lifted. I will be helping produce a brand new Australian play. Very exciting thing for me. I have toured only of my own work, so it's going to be exciting to help develop somebody else's work. Now, this is a play by Francis Greenslade, who you probably know from Mad as Hell. He's one of the regular performers and writers on there. This play is very exciting. I'm really interested to see how audiences respond to it. We'll talk a little bit more about it in the new year, but it's going to be part of the 2024 Theatre Works season. It's going to be starring Michaela Barnes and John Leary. So two local Australian actors who are quite talented. We did a read through the other day, and I'm very excited to see just how it's all going to come together when they had a little bit of time to rehearse it. So, more information on that in the new year, but the play's called Platypus, I guess. That's the one thing I should tell you. The play's called Platypus. It's going to be part of the Theatre Works 2024 season. So if you get a chance to check that out, I do highly recommend it. I won't be in it, but I'll be around. Until then, though, guys, I will continue to be the bearer of weird news. And now, let's get into the headlines. New RBA boss Michelle Bullock has claimed services such as hairdressing and dentist appointments are to blame for the cost pressures in Australia. I can read between the lines, Michelle. Long hair, bad teeth. You're saying that we need to return to Victorian-era England. I know the beginning of a back in my day speech when I hear it. Ooh, back in my day, children cleaned chimneys for shillings and they were happy for the work. No, we don't live in that world anymore. Bullock said everyone is seeing prices for goods and services rise strongly, but this has a particularly severe impact on low-income households. This emphasises the need to get inflation back down. Then she immediately raised the rate 3 more times to help. So that's what she's doing. She's helping. Bob Katter is out and about again, calling for the replacement of King Charles III on Australian coins. Look, it's rare that I find myself in agreement with Katter, but this is correct. This is the way forward. And I know that nobody really takes Katter seriously because not a single one of these newspapers that are powered by puns went with the headline, "Off with his head!" I mean, guys, it was right there. What were you doing? Right there. Now, the suggestion made by Katter that an Australian should adorn the coins, some sort of homegrown hero, Katter is fond of saying. Possible homegrown heroes being bandied about are the death of the middle class, the relentless capitulation to the oil and gas industry, a koala burning in an out-of-control bushfire that is a result of ignorance of climate policy and cutbacks on endangered animal support. I imagine these last two probably pair up and make like a nice double side for a single coin, right? In the same way that we got like two heads for the $2 coin. There's always the ceaseless punishment of refugees, that's an Australian staple, and then there's continued ignorance of the need of the indigenous population, and of course don't forget 9 years of coalition government despite everything that they say and do. I am, you are, we are Australia. Under a new pilot, Japan will begin trialling sales of prescription-free morning after pills. And honestly, it's about time. If there is one thing that we don't need, it's another scene with Godzilla babies. Oh, hang on. No, we're too late for that, aren't we? Yep, have we got a clip?
Is that a mini Kong?
See, this is what happens when you let Americans be in charge of your kaijus. There's no birth control, and we got babies everywhere. Dick Smith has urged people to stop buying anything from Facebook or Instagram after a deepfake video of him spruiking an investment opportunity was circulated by scammers online, saying the greed is so great they run ads from criminal organisations. He went on to say if anyone was going to benefit from ripping off ordinary Australians, it was going to be him. Taking the money of unexpecting Australians was a crime, but wage theft, mate, that's just savvy business. The federal government is looking to ban the Nazi salute after spikes in anti-Semitism and racism. After the Nazi salute is banned, Sky News is going to have to move all of its operations to Nauru, where Australia does all of its worst modern atrocities. Now you might think, but they've never done a Nazi salute on air, and you're right, but they do need to be able to do the morning meetings, and it is a mandatory way to start their morning meetings. Upon hearing the announcement, federal police were informed the Nazi salute is now illegal, guys, and it's no longer the easiest way to identify your friends amongst the protest crowd. On the back of this news, other offensive gestures will have to go as well, starting with the shaka, not for cultural appropriation, but to allow people who escaped from Bondi to attempt to take their life back. Teenage boys will no longer be able to do the shocker. We'll see if I can do that. Yeah, there we go. Let's see if I can do the shocker. Not that they've ever been near a vagina, let alone know how far down it actually is from where they think it is. Also, we'll be stopping the talk to the hand. That's gone. That's for being too close to being the Nazi symbol. It's just a game that we're not willing to take. Also, the royal wave. Look, if I'm honest with you, if we're ever going to throw off the yoke of colonialism, it starts here, people. It starts right here. And finally, the final gesture that we're going to eliminate is that white people will no longer be able to do the Namaste prayer hands. The long nightmare is finally over. The Israeli-Hamas ceasefire ended mere moments after the possibility of it being extended was floated, after Israel realized that they'd be required to stop bombing Palestinian children. The war has now escalated to such a point that Qatar, the country of Qatar, is actually looking like a force for reason in the Middle East. Oh, how things have changed. Speaking of war crimes, beloved war criminal and oh my god, that's somebody's warmongering grandfather, Henry Kissinger, has died at the not soon enough age of 100. Kissinger enters hell under the pretense of looking for weapons of mass destruction. After Kissinger's death, the Nobel Prize Committee could finally admit that his Peace Prize was in fact a prank that really got out of hand, and they will be revoking it posthumously. Any minute now, Nobel Prize Committee. Any minute now. We are waiting. A well-endowed bat has become the first mammal known to reproduce without penetration because its penis is so big. Upon hearing this, your mate Trent wanted to jump in and claim that he was the first mammal of this kind of gargantuan schlong, baby, but was torn when he realised that he'd have to admit that he'd never been able to actually have sex with it. His head promptly exploded when he couldn't decide which one was better to choose. The bat has a penis that is 7 times too large to fit inside the vaginal opening of its species, and a head that is 7 times too wide to achieve penetration, making it the perfect failure of form and function. And still, every man that you know is weighing up the pros and cons of having that colossal useless member. We're going to move on now to a different kind of larger news. First up, it is climate news. Yes, just when you thought it was safe to return to the water starts coming closer and closer and closer to you and starts to be getting deeper and deeper. Good thing I already felt safe about it, as it seems to be everywhere now, and is that a shark in the street? Sharks shouldn't be in the streets, they don't live here. It's local traffic only, sharks, get out of here. You're gonna forget hot girl summer, it's hot, wet, everything summer this year, as top scientists say that the world's ice sheets are melting more rapidly than expected, and that world leaders must ramp up their climate ambitions to avoid catastrophic rises in sea levels. Which explains why nothing is really happening. Top scientists are much too diplomatic to actually get anything done. We need credible threats, not just to us, but also to the rich. You understand? They need to be scared of something in order that we act. Orcas destroying yachts isn't enough anymore. We need to take it up a level. We appreciate your service, orcas, but it's time to switch it up. We need to scare them good and proper. And nothing, it seems, scares both sides of politics more than refugees. That's right, you nailed it, guys, refugees. So, one of those islands out there in the Pacific is going to have to make a sacrifice for the greater good. And I know, guys, you've been doing a lot as it is bearing most of the brunt of the climate catastrophe, but we need you to step up one more time. We need you, unspecified sacrificial island. Sorry, Pacific nations, but you're the first on the drowning block. So you always knew that it was going to be you. Plus, if I'm honest with you, you're full of brown people, and that really scares the political establishment. So we will make it fair. We'll give you a proper chance to defend your island. Whoever comes last in the upcoming global sporting events throughout the year, then that's going to be the one who's going to need to drown first. But on the plus side, guys, on the plus side, everyone's coming to Australia! That's right, it's a climate refugee bonanza! Everyone must arrive! We're just opening up visas for people. Come on over, guys, come on over! Now, in this latest report, scientists argue a rise in global temperatures of 2 degrees Celsius would force many to flee coastal communities, which will mean no more Bondi Beach, so I guess it's not all bad. Now, it seems that the Earth is already flirting with our destruction, as the mean global temperature briefly crossed a critical threshold of 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels, likely for the first time just in recent history. Having crossed the 1.5 degree threshold, for the very first time, we need to start preparing the younger generation with the means for their upcoming survival in the coming climate apocalypse. So with that in mind, I have prepared the Cleo Climate Apocalypse Special pickup lines for the upcoming climate apocalypse. Can we get some sexy music under this? Ooh, yes, that's it. Good work. Here we go. Hey baby, the atmosphere isn't the only thing that's smoking around here. Ooh. Are you a carbon footprint? Because you're making a lasting impression on my heart. Are you a greenhouse gas? Because you're turning up the heat on this conversation. Oh. Are you an endangered species? Because I'd do anything to protect you. Sex with you must be like a tornado drill, because I want to practice it regularly. Oh. Are you increasing amounts of CO2 in the atmosphere? Because you take my breath away. Have you managed to resurrect the bees? Because you look like a keeper. Oh. Did you just increase global temperatures by 2 degrees? Because you're too hot to handle. Oh! The sparkle in your eyes is so bright, I barely notice that we blocked out the sun. You must be water hoarded by a warlord rolling down a mountainside, because I am trying not to become addicted to you. Ow. Are you a carbon tax or renewable energy tax? Because I can't see a future without you. You must be a super typhoon, because you blew me away. You remind me of a leather desert outfit, because I'm wondering, how do you get into those pants? Did you fail to reach the Paris Climate Agreement, or are you always this hot? Ooh. Is that a defensive shiv in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? Your eyes are like the ocean. Half of humanity may have drowned in them already. Just like the Thunderdome, I'll never leave you. So there you go, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. Good luck out there in the climate apocalypse. I hope you meet that special someone. Now, you Gen Zers really should get to learning some of those pickup lines, because the climate apocalypse is profitable and some people still really need to profit, as evidenced by an undercover investigation which revealed that Saudi Arabia is driving a huge global investment plan to create demand for its oil and gas in developing countries. Ooh, cheeky. Effectively trying to get those countries hooked on its harmful products. Seems they saw how cigarette companies took over the globe and were loved for it, and then praised endlessly for it, and they thought, wow, that seems like a business model that we can really get behind. We should do that. Yes, this is the same Saudi Arabia that is the host of COP28, that's right. A leaked briefing document revealed plans to discuss fossil fuel deals with 15 nations, and that is extremely cheeky. You might be outraged that the UAE did not deny using COP28 meetings for business talks, or declined to comment on what was discussed in those meetings, and said its works have been focused on meaningful climate action. A very vague phrase, if ever I've heard one. But I say it's your own fault. It's this daily side hustle, grind set mindset culture, this anti-Nepo baby mindset that has driven these Nepo babies, these poor princes, to feel that they need a job besides, just being rich for the rest of their days and allowing someone else to run the company. No, because of all of this anti-Nepo baby talk, now they need to be a prince and an oil baron and host a climate talk to improve the future of renewable energy. They could have just been Nepo baby desert kings, but you all said that they needed to contribute to society. So now they run the place, as well as got a nice little side hustle selling oil to developing nations. Now they're out here side hustling, working that grind set 8 days a week like the Beatles, making secret deals with developed nations while hooking developing nations on new oil. Is it dirty work? Sure. But that's what this modern world demands of them. Do you want them to be Nepo babies or to sell oil? You've got to make a choice, people. This is what you've demanded of them. The documents did reveal proposed talking points, such as one for China, which says that ADNOC, which is the UAE's state oil company, is willing to jointly evaluate international liquefied natural gas opportunities in Mozambique, Canada, and Australia. Hey, that's us! hey, it's nice to be included. Sometimes, it's just nice to be mentioned in a sentence that isn't, you need to stop selling coal, Australia. That's good. It's nice. Thanks for including us. Now, the good thing about us as a country is you don't even need to be sneaky to include us in further fossil fuel talks, because we are still very openly doing that shit. Just ask Tuvalu. They'll be more than happy to tell you all about it as they're on their little boats coming over here to be refugees. The first day of COP28 saw a landmark deal agreed upon to help the world's poorest and most vulnerable countries that are struggling to cope with the loss, damage, and irreversible impacts caused by the climate crisis. Although nobody could quite come up with an appropriate compensation for the time we forced the world to spend time with Tony Abbott when he was Prime Minister. He was one of the major drivers of climate change after all. But in our defense, we didn't want to spend time with him in our country, and he had to go somewhere. We can't send him into space, at least not yet. At that time, none of the space companies were taking passengers. All developing countries, particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change, will actually be eligible to benefit from the mechanism, although the definition of what exactly constitutes vulnerable is yet to be specified. But if it's anything like how we classify vulnerable species, we will not need to worry about having a specification, because increasingly more and more countries will become classified as vulnerable or worse, and there won't be any developed nations left to contribute to the fund in the first place. Do you think that's the plan? Do you think that's what we're out here doing? If we destroy our country enough, then we actually fall backwards in classifications and we become a developing nation, and that way we can benefit from the fund. Ooh, very cheeky. I guess that's why the Saudis need to make all these deals. They've got all of the money. They're never going to be broke. They're never going to fall into the category of a developing nation. This loss and damage in developing countries' deal is already estimated by some studies to be greater than $400 billion annually, and it's expected to rise. They need to make as much money as possible now. Do you understand? Now. They've got to do it. They're just getting these countries to pay for themselves in the future by making these deals. Oh, very clever, Saudi Arabia. Very clever. I know this trick. It's a very old trick. My workplace used to do it, right? So they'd convince everyone to pay into the party planning fund for future events. But then they would just end up using that money that we didn't spend on events that we never did during the year, because we never did any events during the year, to fund the unlimited drinks at the Christmas party, while taking all the credit for putting on a great Christmas party that had unlimited drinks. Successfully fooling us every single year by plying us with drinks until we vomited our hatred of the company out for another year. Very tricky, Saudi Arabia. But I'm onto you. I am onto you. Moving on now, it is dinner news. Step right up, guys. It is dinner time. People say White Australia has no cuisine, that it's just bland adaptations of British and American food. This is despite having a plethora of delicious animals spread across the continent that we could be eating and engaging in creating some unique cuisine with. I encourage you to do it. So many of our creatures are delicious, and I don't know why we don't eat them more often. Take all of the beef out of the supermarkets and replace it with kangaroo. That's the goal. That's what we should be doing. We should just be replacing all of the beef with kangaroo. But I digress. We have so many delicious animals, we actually put 2 of them on our coat of arms, making it the most delicious coat of arms in the world! Though I shouldn't be too surprised that we haven't embraced the national animals more widely as dinner options. We never really were very good at embracing anything native as part of our lifestyle. So I guess just a slow process to embracing that. Though these particular advocates want us to embrace a kind of local creature, the Percy Island goat. Advocates for the goat say that they are the goat of goats, with humble beginnings as a life-saving food source for stranded sailors. People are hoping that the promotion of the Percy Island goat for their meat and milk will help to manage population numbers and stop them from dying of starvation. One could argue that being responsible for keeping so many British colonial sailors alive, these goats are now getting their karmic comeuppance and don't deserve to be saved at all. But that's just one argument. So 150 years ago, the goats were left to fend for themselves on a 2,000 hectare island where they thrived in solitude. From the original 12, there are now thousands living in a national park, and they have even evolved their own unique breed. Well, no wonder nobody wants to eat them. They started as 12. That means that a lot of inbreeding has happened for them to reach a population of thousands. We aren't interested in eating your genetically too similar goats, spending their time swimming in the shallow end of the genetic gene pool where things are a little too familiar. Advocates for the breed hope that by promoting the quality of the goat's meat, they will manage the population and endear the breed to the mainland market. And for those who find the idea of eating animals abhorrent, they are considered a restricted invasive species under Queensland law, which actually allows for culling to control numbers. So if you don't eat them, somebody will shoot them for no reason. So you may as well come around and eat some goat. And as I said, they will starve to death if we do not eat them. A much worse fate than being served with a gravy and a mash, as long as they aren't served alongside something like, I don't know, kale or onions. Because if they are, then they died in vain. What a waste of a goat. So look, it looks like this is the only solution left for animals in danger, right? That's sort of the world that we've built now. In the future, if we need to save something, we need to be able to eat it. It needs to be delicious, and we need to be able to serve it up. It's basically humanity's greatest flaw. We don't save anything unless there's some sort of quid pro quo for us. You want in on this sweet domesticated life? Then humanity needs to get its beak wet, or its lips wet, I guess, because we don't really have a beak as such. What can you offer us? Meats? Milk? Hilarious online videos? We're gonna need something in return. If you can offer us all of those things, we just might have a deal, Goaty. It's why we should all know if a panda is tasty, so that we know for sure if we want to set aside space to save them or allow them to take their, if I'm being completely honest, self-guided path to voluntary veganism and celibacy to its logical end, the death of the species. We need one panda to step up and serve itself as the sacrificial lamb? Sacrificial panda, I guess, in this instance. We'll cook it up, we'll have a representative from every country come out, eat a piece of panda, and decide if it is worth putting on the menu. And why stop there? If I'm honest with you, we can go a lot further than this. We can solve a lot more problems this way. Look, I've been pitching this one for years now. If we want to improve that aged care system, we need to go full Soylent. Sorry, but it's the only way that I can see us actually embracing wanting to improve the aged care system. Look, there is never money for bare bones humanitarian solutions. So now we're going to have to pay for aged care by Soylent greening the residents. Sorry guys, this is how we operate. We'd be more willing to give everyone a better life if at the end of that life we all had access to the organs and could use them as a food supply. You better believe suddenly the quality of life will improve for a lot of these old people. Because it's an investment at that point. It's not just spending money when they should have looked after themselves. No, it's an investment in all of our future. Look, I'm just putting it on the table for dinner. Take it on board, do what you will with it. Moving on now is the worst news. Let's talk about business. I find it hard to determine who has the worst business practices. If it's 19th century industrial era practices with children in chimneys, crushing the labour movements, ungodly working hours, low pay and aggressively unsafe working conditions, or if it's now with our children in chocolate fields, the crushing of labour movements, ungodly working hours over multiple jobs due to the casualisation of the workforce, stagnating pay and aggressively and intentionally unsafe working environments. But now we have computers to screw us over as well as people, so there's always that. Not to mention, these days, we have newer and newer technologies to help exploit workers in increasingly inventive ways. Like this lucid dream startup that claims its engineers can write code in their sleep. Yeah, that's right, they can write code in their sleep. And they're out to prove it by suggesting this next level atrocity. Using a headpiece, the startup company Prophetic calls the Halo. Now, for those who are unsure, the Halo is a device put around a person's head that causes them to go catatonic so that the authorities can put them into the ground for the rest of their natural life. In the sci-fi dystopian film Minority Report. And in typical tech bro style, they've looked at the future dystopia and instead of asking, how do we stop this, they've asked, how do we make money off this? Saying that employees should induce a lucid dream state, which is when the dreamer is aware that they are sleeping, with the goal being to give people control over their dreams so that they can use that time productively. Yeah, you heard that right. They want to maximize your productivity by having you do another full shift while you are dreaming. Have you ever dreamed that you were at work? It sucks, doesn't it, right? It's just the worst. You spend all day at work and then you go to bed and it all starts over again. Really, brain? Really? This is what we're going to do with the limitless power of the human imagination? We're going to clock in and do another shift, except this time everything is bad? If I woke up having dreamed about work, you better believe that I call in sick. Frankly, as far as I'm concerned, I've done the job already. I'm not going in for another 8-hour day. You want me, the ordinary man, to learn how to enter a state of dreaming where I can control my dream and waste that infinite power to do more work for you? Fuck that. I'm gonna fly somewhere, or I'm just gonna watch a movie. You understand? Anything other than spending another 8 hours at work. Get fucked. This is more dubious than the toilets that were designed to slope downwards so that you can't rest properly while taking a shit. All I have is pooping on the job and not dreaming about work. Those are times for me and for me alone. I know that you enjoyed Inception. We all did. But you don't need to disrupt sleeping. Sleeping is our sanctuary. Dreams are like reality. But if someone yelled, okay, now do a silly one, we get to do whatever we want in our dreams. Anything can happen, and you want us to give up that infinite power, that capacity to be alone and do anything just to squeeze out another shift for your shitty startup? Are you fucking kidding me? I already don't want to hear about your dreams, but if you purposely learned to master the power of lucid dreamings only to waste that by going back in to do another shift, you are a bootlicker and you are dead to me. I will burn this place to the fucking ground before I agree to a contract where I work in my sleep. Get fucked. I am happy to sleep at work, but I'm not wasting a good nap on more work. I don't even want to work when I'm working. Why would I want to work more when I'm sleeping? Get fucked. You know what they call it when you dream about work? They're called stress dreams. They're bad for your health, dude. You shouldn't be having those kind of stress dreams. Okay, sorry. let's talk about the device a little bit. So, working in collaboration with Afshin Meehan, the designer of Neuralink N1 for Elon Musk's brain implant company Neuralink, who, by the way, euthanized their macaque test subjects after they suffered various complications, including bloody diarrhea, partial paralysis, and cerebral edema. That's a swelling in the brain for us normies. As if it wasn't enough that my job will hurt me when I'm awake, but now it might kill me for the very human error of needing to sleep sometimes. Are you fucking kidding me? You can really tell the workplace is the only place where this kind of CEO feels comfortable. We've all worked with someone like this before. Work is their whole personality. You can tell this because they're offering you control of lucid dreaming, the liminal space between consciousness and unconsciousness. And what do they demand that you do with it? Work. Show up for another shift of coding. Work. Not some sort of sex fantasy or traveling to space and the stars. Not something impossible like touching lava or getting superpowers or making a meal that has onion in it that doesn't actually taste like crunchy cardboard that has been scattered all over your meal. No, nothing like that. Not even something fun like eating a pizza the size of a house. Nope, just more fucking work. Are you fucking kidding me? It's bad enough that we sell our waking lives for minimum wage. Now they want us to sell our dreams to them. And there's not even a guarantee that they're going to pay us at this point. I haven't seen any evidence that they're even offering to pay for our dreams. There is indeed a noticeable lack of talking about paying us for our dream time. But I personally wouldn't stress too much about this. I wouldn't put a lot of stock into this becoming some kind of reality, because if the technology doesn't actually blow up too many apes in the testing stage, they will eventually realize, and this might be what finally stops this mad idea, if I'm clocking in for a second shift, then my day has ultimately become a 16-hour day. That is a lot of overtime, and they are not going to like paying all of that overtime. They don't even like paying me when I'm doing my regular hours, let alone a whole night's worth of work that is effectively intangible, but they can't micromanage my attempts to work. They can't stand over my shoulder while they're in my dream and look down at the work that I am or may not be doing. I'll just take the same approach that I do to my regular work. Assure them that I have indeed done all of the work as I was supposed to do before going back to sleep and hoping that I can get back into that dream with the world's largest pizza. Fuck, that was a good time. Moving on now, it is smoke news. On over to New Zealand. Our friend in the ditch. New Zealand has benefited for many years from the goodwill of their former leader Jacinda Ardern. Well, those days are over, and the influence of the Dark Lord Sauron has begun to cover the lands once more as the National Party has been voted back into power. Although, like all true evil powers in history, they won't bring down the country alone. No. They formed a coalition between the conservative, borderline libertarian ACT Party, the populist New Zealand First Party, and the National Party, forming not so much a coalition, but more of an uneasy axis of vile. And they're starting out strong by showing who they really are. I mean, why waste time allowing people to realise that they've made a mistake? Get straight to work destroying things. So in that spirit, and in an incredible display of short-sighted Veruca Salt-esque behaviour, the National Party leader Christopher Luxon has declared he doesn't care how, he wants tax cuts now! These parties are all the same predictable, boring malevolence. Reduce rights for the minority communities, cut taxes for the rich, and sometimes smaller government. But if I'm being honest, original ideas and moving the country forward is not why people voted for them in the first place. They want to freeze time in a bottle and club the younger generations over the head with said bottle, being like, things were better in my day, things were better in my day, why are you trying to change things? Things always work like this. It doesn't work like that anymore, guys. We're moving forward as a society. But they are off to a good start. After all, they are going to need a way to fund these fancy new tax cuts, right? That's always the catch. They don't have a lot of public services to sell off since the Labour government in the late 1980s embarked on its sweeping sell-off state assets. Since the Labour government in the late 1980s embarked on its sweeping sell-off as many state assets as possible venture. So instead, they have to find new frontiers to earn the money that they are taking out of the tax budget. So what's left for new PM Christopher Luxon to sell off? They do have one major asset, that is the future of the nation's children. So to help pay for tax cuts, Luxon has decided that he's going to scrap the country's world-leading law to ban smoking for future generations, a move that public health officials believe will cost thousands of lives and be catastrophic for Maori communities. See, you aren't better than us, New Zealand. Who do you think you are? We also treat our indigenous cultures poorly. Now, get over here and form one super country. Let's face it, at a certain point in history, we were one country, and we would have stayed that way if you didn't think you were better than us by treating your native population with respect and a treaty. So now it's time for us to join back together, and we're going to become Western New Zealand. But I guess with the new leadership that you've put in place, looks like you are desperate to mimic us and become more like us, so maybe you'll become Eastern Australia. We can talk about it, we can negotiate which way this will go. For those who don't know what all this is about, in 2022, New Zealand passed legislation which introduced a steadily rising smoking age to stop those born after January 2009 from ever being able to legally buy cigarettes. The law was designed to prevent thousands of smoking-related deaths and save the health system billions of dollars. But tax cuts don't grow on trees, you guys. The billions saved on health expenses, that won't be for many years from now, and we need tax cuts now. Don't care how, we need them now. Remember, every time a politician proposes a tax cut, that money has to come from somewhere. And this may seem like a callous choice to endanger the lives of future generations of the country, but arguably, Luxon is actually doing these kids a favour by shortening their lives. Hear me out. Because even though he claims to be pro-climate change belief and will attempt to meet the climate targets, he has still formed the Axis of Vile with New Zealand First, whose leader, Winston Peters, questioned the scientific evidence behind climate change initiatives. Woohoo, how fun. He said that New Zealand should not have to account and pay for emissions that would bankrupt the country, and shared misinformation minimizing human impact on the climate during his campaign. And then there's ACT, who campaigned hard on repealing the Zero Carbon Tax Act, who campaigned hard on repealing the Zero Carbon Act. How fun. I'm pretty sure it won't be long before they start really pulling back on those initiatives. Look, it's probably worth mentioning that the Nationals' policy is to divert most of the Climate Emergency Response Fund to tax cuts. We believe in climate change, but we will not fund it. So they'd already decided that these kids had no future, and allowing them to buy cigarettes is more about letting them have the choice to euthanize themselves rather than live to see the billionaires flock to their island home and occupy the underground bunkers that they have already bought to survive the climate apocalypse that they've created. And to ensure there is enough tax money to cover these tax cuts, Luxon will personally ensure New Zealand children smoke the entire packet of cigarettes before they're allowed to go to bed, ensuring that they've done their bit to help their country out. But not everybody is interested in smoking themselves to death. So the Nationals have actually created a myriad of options for young children to destroy their health and kick the bucket early. How nice. First, they're going to lower the drinking age and legalize all the drugs, but only for kids born after January 2009. They want to make sure that New Zealand children are assured the same opportunities as previous generations to really fuck up their lives, like getting cancer, just like their forefathers did before them. But with all these new opportunities to self-destruct, we're going to need some new children to replace those who are too cowardly to survive into the climate apocalypse. So we need to start introducing new measures to shore up those numbers. But don't worry guys, they've got you. Because New Zealand's new coalition government has pledged to axe the sexual education curriculums in schools in just one of many areas which the Axis of Vile has signalled as part of their war on woke. New Zealand, welcome to the party! We knew deep down that you weren't better than us. You were gonna walk down this path to the war on woke despite not having the presence of Murdoch in your country. We're ready for you. We might ship Sky News over to you so that they don't have to worry about not being able to do their Nazi salutes in our country. Look, this is kind of a big deal. New Zealand hasn't officially declared war since World War II. So this woke must be pretty bad. Can anybody actually define it? Winston Peters, you want to give it a crack?
You know who they are.
I don't know who they are.
There are those people who are saying, for example, that this is a colonizing country and that we're a retarded society and we have to change the whole thing, beginning with our constitution.
Ooh, sorry, what? Ooh, you seem to be, you seem to really be rambling there. You're going to have to come up with a clearer definition if you could, because that was some real nonsense garbage that you said just there. Have you got anything else for us? Oh, yep. Oh, yes, yeah, here we go. So in a speech, Peters defined woke, which is quite helpful of him. He said that woke means, like a lot of you woke up yesterday thinking that you know a lot more than the rest of us and got a greater sense of consciousness about these issues. Huh. Now that's an interesting definition you got right there. I'm not exactly sure that you know what you're saying. I mean, you certainly use the word woke, so that's a start. But look, I wasn't going to delve into definitions, as you know, language is alive and it's evolving, and it's pretty simple definition. But if you need it, champ, I got you. Don't worry, I got you. Somebody could send this to Winston, that'd be really great. So, woke means being aware, knowing what's really going on in a community, being aware or well informed in a political or cultural sense. End of definition. You want to go to war with people being aware about being informed about what's going on in their political or cultural sense? Actually makes sense now that they're going to go to war on woke. They want to know what people are up to, which, by the way, if you don't know, is restricting trans participation in sports, modifying their gun laws, impacting constitutional rights enjoyed by the Maori, and also the use of the Maori language. Yes, these are all the declared things that they are looking to do. See, this is why we need the young to die by smoke inhalation. Now it makes sense. They're the ones who have the spare time to actually really care about progress in a meaningful way. And they will not allow the billionaires to buy up all the land, no matter how many tax cuts that will allow for. I mean, what kind of monsters have we raised here? It's like they don't even care about the country getting tax cuts at all. What sort of nonsense is that? And finally, we are moving on to price gouging news. Guys, this is the final story for the year. And this final story is about our mates at Coles and Woolworths. It's really hard to know which duopoly is causing more harm to the poor, these two or Labor and the Coalition. So in rides the Aldi of political parties, in that they appear very similar until, you stop and read the labels, and they are mostly supported by a group of young weirdos who have gotten sort of desperate and are willing to try something new. Yes, it's the Greens. The Greens, the Aldi of political parties. So the Greens have moved to establish a Senate inquiry into allegations of price gouging from Coles and Woolworths in an attempt to find a way to dismantle the power of Australia's two major supermarkets. Which just kind of felt like a big load of symbolism. You got this like third disruptive party coming in to try and break up the duopoly and find a little place for themselves in the larger narrative. But hey, maybe I'm reading too much into it. So this is all in response to Coles and Woolworths reporting profits in excess of $1 billion in the middle of a cost of living crisis. The Greens believe these profits are being driven up by the major supermarkets using global inflation and supply chain issues as an excuse to charge more for their products than is necessary. And I'd suggest that they definitely were already doing that probably about 2 years ago, when the war in the Ukraine broke out and we hadn't quite stopped pretending that we cared about COVID outbreaks. Now, the COVID price gouging has just sort of evolved into its final form, kind of like a Charmander evolving into a shiny Charizard. It's not actually worth more money, but people are desperate for you to believe it is, so that you'll pay big bucks to get it. You follow? Food inflation has eased this year from the outrageous 9.2% peak in December 2022, and the latest household spending data from the ABS shows food has had the third highest price rise in 2023. Prices, that is, not the food itself, which has in fact gotten smaller thanks to shrinkflation, or as it is more commonly known, food is getting its summer beach body ready in time for Christmas, and it is looking svelte. Look at you, looking so thin this year. I don't want to be devil's advocates here for the supermarket duopoly, but by charging more for less, they're actually helping us all meet our summer body goals, because not only are we getting less food for the same price, we're unable to afford more food on the whole due to the cost of living crisis. Or if you are a Coles and Woolworths employee, they'll be cutting back on your shifts to offset the employee discount. It's all for our own good, people. They're just looking after us, making sure that we get our summer bodies banging. And if you can't control yourselves, Coles will control you for you. You're welcome. A final report won't be tabled until May 2024. What? Hang on, May 2024. I know that these things need to take time to be done properly, but that just means that they have a guaranteed 6 months of price gouging ahead of them until the government heeds an investigation into whether they should consider the possibility of inquiring into the potential of maybe doing something about this in a possibly speedy manner. Coles and Woolworths confirmed representatives would appear and give evidence if called to do so. Oh, so you do still have employees who aren't security guards. I mean, I could have sworn that the only people who still worked at Coles and Woolworths were 9 security guards forming a scrum at the exit, unless you have your receipt ready, and 1 high school student attending to 200 self-service cashiers. Well, I suppose they have to have some employees still, as they need to send the profits to somebody, right? It's not like they needlessly engineer an opportunity to rob and steal from the local community for no reason at all. That'd be needlessly cruel. It's all to serve the greater good, ensuring that a CEO doesn't need to take on a frontline job to survive. Have you seen how bad things have gotten out there on the front line? We couldn't put someone so disconnected from the realities of survival on the front line. It'd be like putting a domesticated animal back out in the wild. They just lack the critical survival skills that the others have learned through the hard struggle to survive. A Coles spokesperson said in a statement the company was always exploring ways to reduce prices on the products we sell. I mean, out of habit, they first put the prices up before exploring ways to reduce said price and come to the conclusion that they could reduce it by less than half of what they'd actually raised it by. This way, everybody wins. Whereas Woolworths actually took a different approach, with a spokesperson saying the company was working to deliver relief on grocery bills, going on to mention that the delivery of relief would of course incur a delivery fee. But you're a good person who cares about the workers, so you'd hate to see them suffer or even lose their jobs while trying to deliver that relief to you, wouldn't you, right? So you'll be happy to pay the extra fee. The Greens also want to look at whether technology like self-serving checkouts are being used unfairly to extract cost savings by employing fewer workers. The results of this investigation will be able to be read in the May edition of No Shit Sherlock magazine. Fucking May, are you kidding me? We can't survive until May. We're being exploited now. Like this has been happening for months. Both companies recorded profits in excess of $1 billion this year, or one Barbie movie, as we say in the modern parlance. Looks like we will be forced to take drastic measures. Continue to take drastic measures, maybe increasingly more drastic measures, as it seems that shoplifting is becoming as popular as middle parts, turning old films into musical adaptations, nihilism, and the resurgence of the Nazi Party. Thefts occurring at retail locations have increased for the second year running, up 17% from 2021 to 2022. And firstly, good work, team. Fucking good work. These are beginners' numbers. We can lift these numbers up. I think we can do better in the following season, but it's a good start. If we can't boycott a company because they've effectively destroyed the thin illusion of competition that we were once able to hold as a society, then we will get aggressive about late-stage capitalism and our inability to escape it. Because let's be honest, late-stage capitalism has a higher escape velocity than a black hole. According to a Monash Uni poll, more than a quarter of consumers believe that blatant forms of retail theft were a little or completely justifiable. And something like 40% of consumers thought it was completely justifiable, but they also knew that the internet is forever and that they wouldn't be foolish enough to admit that they were a part of the act of class solidarity that is stealing from the empire. But they're out there in secret. Taking an item without paying was perceived as a little to completely justifiable for 28% of shoppers, followed by changing price tags on products at 30%, not scanning some items when using a self-checkout terminal at 32%, and scanning items as cheaper items when using a self-checkout terminal at 37%. And if you're looking for some inspiration and want to switch up your system of money saving, these are just a few suggestions that we as a podcast could never actually endorse. It'd be wrong, and you wouldn't hear me talking about my own experience of fighting back against wage theft, say in some sort of, 2024 Fringe World, Adelaide Fringe and Melbourne International Comedy Festival show about class solidarity, workplace exploitation, and just how dodgy my old jobs were, and tickets to that particular show are definitely not already on sale now. But this was interesting. This was quite interesting. I found this. So older consumers, say 55 years and older, considered retail theft behaviours as not at all justifiable compared to other age groups, which I actually understand, as they stole the economy and our economic and financial future from us, and they think that that was completely justified, whereas we don't feel the same way. So we have different priorities, you know? However, younger consumers between 18 and 34 years of age indicated that forms of theft are a little to completely justifiable, which makes a lot of sense, because as a generation we came to sexual maturity, watching the street rat Aladdin and his partner in crime Princess Jasmine teach them all about flexible morals through the charmingly roguish men or the strong-willed and independent women, or for a few of us, equally liking both of those characters. But we didn't yet have the cultural acceptance and language to express that just yet. So you can understand how we came on board with the it's okay to steal if you need to. After all, gotta eat to live, gotta steal to eat. I learned the complex dynamics of moral relativism in a catchy song that told me as long as I was struggling and didn't have access to a genie's lamp, then stealing is all above board. And that I should try and get a monkey to help me pull off this particular caper. Still looking into that though. If you don't want a generation to learn these lessons, you need to stop putting them in some sort of catchy song. Look, the generation before us grew up with the lovable orphan Oliver Twist, but the only lesson that we learned from Oliver is, as a child, that they should ask for more, which they obviously did, but as an adult, if a child asks them for more, they should beat them black and blue. Also, that it is okay to sell a boy, and it kind of feels like they've learned those lessons. Retail associations and retailers have sprung into action to crack down on retail crime, or as it is more commonly known, people trying to survive. Saying that if people are increasingly concerned about the cost of living crisis and their ability to pay for the increasing cost of the incredible shrinking groceries, that they should just do what Coles executives have done and downsize their staff while giving themselves $1 million bonus for doing the good work of raising profits at all costs. It's all very logical, really, and I don't know why you haven't done it already. Coles and Woolworths have increased physical security and are implementing new surveillance technology such as additional cameras, assisted scanning, and smart gates to better identify and monitor retail crime. The cameras do, however, remain pointed at you, the customer / employee. Should the cameras look back at the very people trying to install them, then they'd actually explode at the level of criminal behaviour that they detect, forcing them to be repaired and reinstalled with updated software that could handle the philosophical contradiction of a store feigning moral outrage over the idea of theft after years of stealing from its customers with such frequency and intensity that we started to assume that the people who still shop there didn't do it because they were supporting the store, but more because it was some form of like Stockholm syndrome, or maybe some kind of kink. Maybe they'd like entered into a financial domination situation with a retailer that had gotten out of control and has like spilled into the public arena. If they really wanted that sort of arrangement, they could have used like a membership system. They seem to be very fond of that recently. So you get these people who want to enter into this like financial domination system. You get them to sign up as a dirty financial servant, of the supermarket. And then when they scan their membership card, the prices actually go up in accordance with how much of a naughty boy they've been recently. Yeah, apparently stealing is only okay in one direction. What happened, Coles and Woolworths? You were all about stealing a few moments ago when it was all your staff's wages and you were the beneficiary. This moral relativity not really working out for you anymore, now that we've figured out that it's actually a two-way system? And look, mathematically, they have no reason to be concerned. Honestly, they have no reason to be. Given that they were so proud to show off their $1 billion in profits, we can do a little bit of crime maths. Yes, it's crime maths. The internet loves crime maths. So, let's do it. Australia has a current population of, and look, we are being generous here, which is more than the supermarkets are willing to be with us, 26 million. So we're actually rounding up to 26 million, because let's be honest, we're going to get there soon enough anyway. The only thing that we have left to do is stay in our houses and fuck. And we can't afford to do any other form of birth control. It's just simply out of control. So, with the $1 billion in profit, we're going to divide that by a population of 26 million, right? So, individually, we would each need to steal $38 million worth of products or just under 1 Stuart Robert according to the new parlance, worth of groceries in order to completely eliminate just a single year's worth of profits. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And that's just the profits. Even with your outrageous prices, if we were given unlimited reign to steal, none of us are going to reach that $38 million mark in a single lifetime of stealing. Plus, we know that the 55-year-olds out there are too cowardly to take the groceries from their oppressors, so they will end up covering the cost of the rest of us, or at least a good chunk of it. So, what are you so worried about? Let us go buck wild. $38 million worth of groceries. That will more than cover my lifetime, and that's a single year's profits. I'm in the wrong industry. I'm so in the wrong industry. And that is the end of the episode. Thanks for hanging out. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to share it around, do all the things. Like it, subscribe, give it a 1 star or a 5 star. That's it. That's the only things that we'll accept. If you enjoyed it, it's 5 stars. If you didn't enjoy it, it is 1 star. Otherwise, what's the point? No messing around with this 2, 3, 4 stars. What are you doing? Do come out and check out the live shows. I really appreciate it. I still think it's the best way to support the podcast. So if you want more of this and if you enjoy listening to this, please come out and check out the live shows. I'll be doing Rage Against the Machine in Rockingham Fringe, Perth Fringe World, the Adelaide Fringe, and the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. I will be working on Platypus as a producer. I will check that out. We'll get more information out to you. And do sign up to the Patreon if you haven't already done so. We've got a really fun bonus episode for you today. But until then, thank you so much for hanging out. Share this with a friend. And goodbye. Oh, we're banning that one. Bye.